Thank you, Sander, for the opportunity and those kind words. Good afternoon, or looking at my Australian watch, good night, everyone. My father-in-law is from the Netherlands, and a good friend of mine works for the airport. He used to be in charge of business process management. Now he's in Rio de Janeiro. And he used to play a lot of soccer in Australia. And when he had his farewell event, he said, every time we lost as a team, and they played with Dutch, South Americans, and Australians, the Dutch guys would leave the soccer field and would say, oh my God, we have to analyze this, we have to reconsider this, we have to engineer a better team. The South Americans would whinge and blame. They would blame the referee, they would blame the ball, they would blame the weather. And the Australians would say, no worries. And it's the same with business process management. We have, in particular in the Netherlands, Germany, Central Europe, a history of a very kind of technical engineering focus on business process management, and that has served us well. We understand how to model, how to analyze, how to implement, execute, and collect data. And a number of years ago, this was really impressive. Today, this has become a commodity. And we've got 150 students, as many as are in this room every Monday. And we've got 150 people who provide that sort of core capability to understand, analyze, implement, and incrementally improve a process. It does not help us, like South Americans, to blame the others. Often we are convinced that business process management is the best thing since sliced bread, and then we blame the others. They don't get it. They don't get process thinking. In many cases, it's us, and we're not able to sell a good enough job. You shouldn't show an Australian attitude and say, no worries. You should take processes serious for 3 reasons. First, and this is independent of how processes are to your organization, if you don't consider a process, if you don't know how you work, you miss out on one variable. You might say it's more important to improve a focus on customers, regions, products, physical assets. Process is just one of those variables that matter. Second, processes help you to translate opportunities, and this afternoon is very much about innovation. If we take it for granted that we can streamline, model, and analyze, how do we create better practices, new generation of revenue models? So processes help us to position where new, in particular, technologies and business models can make a difference to the organization. And third, unlike many static assets, HR and employees, finance and money, asset management and physical assets, processes are about the dynamics of an organization. And at the end, if you call it a process or a chain, you will touch on a customer. Meaning, whatever you do with your process, sooner or later will be visible to your customer. So let's pick an example. Airlines. Airlines and traveling are a typical example where the end-to-end experience, and just focus on the air travel for a second, involves a number of stakeholders. So it's difficult enough to clean up a process in my organization. It's even more difficult if it goes across different vendors. So in the airline industry, in the travel industry, when I travel, touch on multiple providers. Even if everyone is doing a 90% job, if everybody is doing a 90% job, 9 out of 10 of my customers are satisfied, my client, my customer, will end up being very, very disgruntled. The question, who do I blame as a customer? It's hard to point my finger at anyone. It's even more traumatic that nobody owns this experience. So we have to differentiate 3 types of processes. There's the business process within my organization. I'm just in charge for the booking. I'm just in charge for the security, for your retail experience. That's my business process. In large cases, this is already a huge challenge. Mortgaging, claims handling, and so on. The second process is the entire chain going across multiple providers. Complex supply chain management is an example, where multiple business partners have to come together, we have to agree on interfaces. We can't even agree on a process owner. We typically have different objectives. The third one is what we call the personal process. And we work on a whole stream of research where the focus is not business process management, but personal process management. I call the birth to death value chain the ultimate process in life. We want to model life. We want to have recommendations that, if you want, take you through your life. And what you see right now, with the inflation of mobile and apps and social and cloud, we, for the very first time in mankind, put IT power in the hand of individuals. The next natural step will be that after they develop an appetite for computers, mobile, cloud, and other technologies, will develop an appetite for processes. And organizations who understand personal processes will have a natural advantage. And I'll give you some examples this afternoon. So, why do we do this and where does it matter? Process redesign is not always about cutting cost. In fact, it should not be about cutting costs. It's much more rewarding to create better customer experiences, revenue, reduce carbon footprint, rescue people. The Red Cross adopted supply chain ideas. So if your processes are not the Red Cross, that means you have to provide 20,000 tents to any location in the world wherever we have a natural disaster. Imagine that's your process, a process on standby, where you scale up within hours. We wrote a whole case study on this, and the case study is about what we can learn, let's say, from car manufacturing environments, provision of spare parts. And as you can see here, selected metrics, when you do this well, you go far beyond efficiency gains, you rescue life. One of my PhD students arrives at midnight when the helicopter arrives at a hospital, and we study the process where we try to rescue life of someone who's severely injured. We rescue life without knowing anything about medicine or medical treatments. It's the orchestration of processes that helps. So in industries where legal, medical, academic, technical expertise matters, it is the process person that can orchestrate all of this. And in addition to this domain-specific expertise, provide an entire new value proposition. So this is where we, passionate about processes, can make a net difference. So, topics for this afternoon. I want to talk about ambidextrous BPM. And ambidextrous means you're good with your left and your right hands. And we want to uncover what does it mean in the context of processes. And then talk about more about the innovation side than the cost side. What drives innovation and how do we innovate? And then I'll show you some examples for what organizations are doing before we end up with a conversation on governance, ownership, and how we operationalize processes. So, ambidextrous. Maybe 1 in 100 people is truly ambidextrous. In many cases, people who are genetically left-handed, and then we enforce them to become right-handed. Some sports stars, Cristiano Ronaldo, Thierry Henry, are ambidextrous. I was looking for some Dutch examples, but struggled. In the context of management, the ambidextrous organization is about you're able to have a focus on today. You keep on the lights, you comply, you execute, you do transactions, and you're able to explore. You think about the future. Many of you have seen the idea of the Kano model, hygiene factors and motivators. The red line is about, even if I excel, even if I improve this process, that's what the other side expects. I studied an organization that spent 24 months implementing SAP HR. Redesigning processes, the payroll process, and after millions of dollars, the payroll process went live. Massive effort for the IT department. What did the business say? I take it for granted that I get paid. If I don't get paid, there's a huge drama. I can only lose. In many BPM exercises, we're on the red line, where all we can do, we can only lose. If we do it right, we fix a bottleneck, we fix a bit of a queuing time, we can't really win. The problem is, it's the red line where we have all our capabilities. How do I model again? How do I fix a problem? How do I do lean management or Six Sigma? Above the line, we create new experiences. We call this exploration of processes. Below the line is typically cost-focused, efficiency-focused, and reactive. I need a problem, and then I fight a fire. Above the line is opportunity-driven. At the airport in Brisbane, we don't worry about the queuing time. We worry about now that many passengers have a smartphone. How do I give you a better experience? Next Thursday, we talk to 22 banks in Frankfurt. We don't study how IT can fix problems at the bank. We study how social media can innovate the process. And you do this with BPM people. So all of a sudden, we pick people in our process management team. They don't react, they are proactive. Most BPM teams that we now work on the red line, they don't allocate people to explore what could be done. And that's what we want to explore in a bit more detail. Recommendation is to be ambidextrous on day one. Don't spend 2 years to build capabilities. Don't spend 2 years to buy a tool, architectures, train people in Lean Six Sigma, get process architectures over the line, and appoint process owners. On day one, find at least one example where you're on the blue line, where you can make a contribution to the organization that goes beyond fixing a problem. So if you contrast this, on the left side, it's the more common BPM approach. I call it commodity BPM. You can buy this on the street. That's what we expect you can do. If I give an accountant, a controller, a complex calculation, and you use some Excel magic, that's what you do. It might not impress me. If I give you my process, and you do some modeling, analysis, and find incremental improvement, it doesn't impress me. That's your job. Today, it's often focused around how do we work and how do we make it a better experience. The exploration is about the future vision. We redesign processes in our very own university right now. Monday morning, 9 o'clock kickoff, the first task was to create an entire new process vision. Don't worry about how we work right now. Create a model for the future. Example, we work with an insurance company. Their vision is real-time insurance. You go for 3 months overseas, your home and content insurance will go down, your travel insurance will go up. I was in Brazil, health insurance provider. Their vision is you grab your phone, you tell us what symptoms you've got, and we make an appointment with a doctor that is close by and recommended by your friends. This is the power of process visions. Our vision as a university might be want to provide real-time education. Wherever you are, we want to blend into your life and be there to give you the next piece of education whenever you need it, just for you, just now, and just enough. We don't worry about how we work right now. We want that people go home on a Friday evening and are excited about the vision. Nobody goes home to his partner and says, guess what? Today we analyze the process, we do some root cause analysis, we are drawing some Ishikawa diagrams, and now we do SWOT analysis for the entire process. Hey, but guess what? We will be the first organization providing real-time insurance. And I'll show you some other examples later. The problem is that the people who work on the red line are typically not the people who are good to create a process vision. When we work with any client, every single process has to have a vision, whether it's payroll, sales, or inventory management. That means that everybody knows where we want to be. Most BPM projects have a process model. I tell you how you work. We give you limited guidance on where we want to be. So my process vision is that gravity in the future. We make current world obsolete by exciting you for the future. That is how explorative BPM sells this. Exploitative BPM will highlight how traumatic the current process is. We better get over it. In our project at QUT, my university, you're not allowed to use the word problem. Everything is an opportunity. It's a simple cultural shift. Stop whinging and complaining. Immediately think about the better way of working. Day one, you're not allowed to use the word problem. And that has made a huge difference. Let me give you 2 examples. So exploitative BPM would look at a problem, queuing time, and we use classical approaches of how we overcome this. We add more resources. We do different triage. We might charge. So you know many models, theme parks, you pay money and you don't have to wait. American ATMs do the opposite, where they say you have to wait and watch advertisement unless you pay. We showed this to a call center. Could you imagine a world where I call you? The call center will say, thanks for your call, you're number 12, it will take 22 minutes, unless you pay. We call them improvement patterns. We teach our students to think in these patterns. You see a queue, and these are the 8 things you can do. That's the only way how a 24-year-old student without experience can improve an organization, to think in patterns. So this is how we do this. We see a problem, and when we finish, the queue is gone. The problem is gone. Nobody might be excited. A process vision might be the Australian Taxation Office saying, our vision is there's no more annual tax return. We reimburse you on the fly. You go for dinner, you submit your receipts, and you get reimbursed tomorrow. That's a vision for taxation office, not a for-profit organization in New York. So you can see the different mindset, how creative, aspirational I have to be on the right, and how do I think on the left. Gut feeling, 90, maybe even more % of our BPM work is on the left. We want that you go home and think about red line, blue line, left and right. Ambidextrous means you need both. Typically, you need this by different people. We work with a retailer. They were very good on the left. They lost 15 times market share against a big competitor. At some point, a guy from the BPM team said, maybe that's not me. I'm very good at architectures and the exploitative side. I'm not the extrovert you require to excite the company about new models. And he left. So if only 1% of the population is ambidextrous in terms of hands and feet, most likely the same is true with the left and right brain. So encouragement is, if the right side is of significance to you, invest. This is an opportunity where the BPM community can be proactive. So I give you 3 examples for innovation. When we innovate a process, the left side, the red side, is about the problem. I'm an insurance company. I've got a claims handling process, and it starts like this, real case. Someone calls and says, Sander, your customer crashed my car. My name is Michael, and I want to lodge a claim. Car's damaged, leg is broken. The client, the company said, no worries, as you say in Australia, you give us your address, and we will send you a 14-page document. Should arrive in a few days, make sure I can read your handwriting, send it back, and you lodge a claim. Can I get one idea for improvement? That was a question. Just one spontaneous idea. Online, what else? What was that? You forget about the form, yeah, so you do it online on the phone or make it 5 pages. What did the company say? Michael, all bad ideas. Any idea how I can add 5 more pages? I don't want you. My aim is to minimize the payout. The easier I make it, the more claims I get. My metric, minimize payout, deteriorates. So if you've got this default reaction, here's a problem, I know how to fix it. I'm an IT person, what can I automate? Hey, what do you try to achieve? How do we think? We think about transactions. We don't think about what we try to achieve. I can see paper, let's get rid of it. We don't think about what is it what I try to achieve, and in light of what I try to achieve, how do I get there? So we have this under control, reacting to problems. The second one is constraints. So unlike a problem, a constraint doesn't disappear. High inflation, as it was in Brazil, now banking system or advanced banking system in Kenya, high Australian dollar, or busy people in South Korea. I can adopt and react. I can't overcome a constraint. I can't eliminate it. The beauty of constraints is they put pressure on the system and enforce innovation. One of the most advanced mobile payment systems is in Kenya. And the MIT travels down to Kenya, where you pay each other using mobile airtime. I send you 3 hours, and you take the 3 hours and go shopping, get cash, or pay at the retail store with it. Why do we have it there? Because 21% have access to a bank, 68% of GSM mobile phones. Brazil, hard to believe for a German, has one of the most advanced banking systems in the world. Why? Because we had high inflation. The World Bank wrote a whole article about the Brazilian banking efficiency being a result of hyperinflation. Tesco in South Korea created virtual stores. South Koreans are one of the hardest working people in the world. They don't have time to shop. They don't have time to come to your supermarket. They take public transport and they've got a mobile phone. So what do I need to do? Find them where they wait. What you see is a wallpaper, QR scan. You Google Tesco, South Korea, you see a 5-minute video, including this picture. We got this information from one of the retailers in Australia, and they asked themselves, why did we not generate the idea? Why did our BPM team not create the idea? Hey guys, create virtual stores. Because we don't have the same constraint. We've got cars, we've got time to go to the shopping center, we don't wait. Reverse process innovation means you travel the world in search of constraints. One of my senior lectures was in Sri Lanka. Not to educate on BPM, but to find innovation we don't have in Australia. Reverse innovation. So, how do I see this? I only see this if I study personal processes and not business processes. If all I do, I sit in my supermarket and wait that you come, I can't see that you're too busy and where you wait. I will never, never, never generate the idea. If I study how you live, I can see that. I work with an insurance company, motor claims. When does the process start? When the customer calls and lodges a claim. When does it really start? When you've got an accident. How did Progressive Insurance react? You have an accident, you press a button, we've got 7,000 emergency vehicles. Our KPI is to see you before you see the ambulance. That's your process vision. I only can see it if I study private processes. What has happened? On the left, 37 bus stops in Brisbane had this virtual store. Where do people wait? And it's now replicated in Australia. Very soon at airports in Australia. You never come home to an empty fridge again. On the right, this is Gatwick Airport. 10 of those. I leave it up to you to spot a difference between a typical Australian and British shopper. So what you can see is we go where the customer is. We go where the customer is. I take it one step further. And that's maybe the hardest, opportunity-driven. So we are excellent in reacting to problems. That is commodity textbook BPM. Constraints should be appreciated because they put pressure on the system, and often they help us to innovate. And if we don't have enough constraints, well, then let's search for constraints or artificially create some. Third, opportunity-driven. We've got no problem, but the whole world talks about social, mobile, big data, and so on. I'm a process person. Many of our clients have hundreds, if not even thousands, of business process models. They know more about the company than anybody else in the whole building. Mobile, social, cloud, and big data emerges, and you ask yourself, what could I do with this? The Commonwealth Bank is the 10th largest bank by market capitalization in the world. And when the CEO retired, he said, I understand the other banks, I understand their business model. He didn't use the word, but he would have said, they all do exploitative BPM. They streamline, automate, react, and fix problems. What's the big unknown? Social media. They do explorative BPM. Maybe is it easier to make an account an attribute of a person than a person an attribute of a bank account? How difficult would it be for Facebook to become a retail bank? How difficult is it for us to get 1 billion customers who are all well connected? So what Combank has done, they created Kashing. Yeah, you can Google this and see a video. Kashing is, to the best of my knowledge, the only mobile payment system that supports Facebook. So you can pay anyone using their mobile number, email address, or Facebook. Main idea, you put money against an ID and the other side picks it up. You never again for the rest of your life remember an account number or a bank number. Today, Facebook is the second most popular way to transfer money in Australia. Online payment, mobile payment is the most popular form since quite a while in terms of payment transfers. How do I have to think to generate the idea? As I said, next Thursday, 22 banks, think about how do I scale it up and how do I roll it out? How do I, as a BPM person, inspire the organization based on opportunity-driven innovation, not based on problem-driven innovation? So the examples are countless. My favorite one is location-based services. Yeah, so we would know where I am right now. I could tell people that I meet where I am. I would never be late for a meeting. I could automatically send out requests. My favorite app is Frenemies. Anyone knows Frenemies? Frenemies is the opposite of Facebook. Yeah, I hate you, you hate me. And then we might agree on 300 meters, and if you ever come closer, we both get an alert. $1.99 in the App Store. This is just a peanuts example, but now ask yourself where, Federal Express, surgeons, whatever, could I use similar capabilities? And to what extent would that switch on capabilities and productivity in my organization? So, exploitative BPM, red line on the left, is fascinated with transactional performance. Cheaper, faster, more standardized. Innovative BPM, explorative BPM, is fascinated with what we call innovation latency. Spot the problem, constraint, opportunity before anybody else does, and then be able to articulate where you need it and how you implement it. Meaning organizations that are doing ambidextrous BPM have dedicated people who do nothing else than technology assessments. One of our clients appointed a lady. She's in charge for strategic innovation. Now, day-to-day job. Think about the world in 2016. You're an insurance company. Time might not matter anymore. Short attention span. Will the Gen Y buy life insurance? If time doesn't matter, what happens to the insurance business? Innovation as a way to hedge risk, to keep you alive, not even to generate revenue. So you can see that truly ambidextrous organizations make sure that I get the right mindset, tools, resources, people, and funding behind the idea of innovation. So then we studied what drives organizations to do BPM. What are typical values? And the typical question we ask them, what do you try to achieve? And it's quite sad in the BPM community how often the statement is purely internal. I've been successful when all our processes are modeled. I've been successful when we've got 50 black belts. I've been successful when we've got process owners. Hey, nobody cares about this. BPM as a service means, like Google, like your dentist, nobody cares about what you do. Just tell me, what do I get in return? Hey, we've been successful if carbon footprint has been reduced by 10%. When mortality rate dropped to 6%. When we generated $5 million of net revenue. When customer loyalty went up by 3%. BPM does not necessarily create new targets. BPM can be a new way to get to an old target. So when we work with a company and they tell us customer loyalty has to go up by 3%, they might want this in 5 years. But maybe by looking into processes, social processes, embedding customers and their friends in my processes, we find ways to increase loyalty. So this is how I get on the critical path of the organization. We have to stop to be obsessed with internal capabilities. I was last week at a conference in London, and it was unfortunate to see how many people over coffee told me that they built capabilities. When the GFC hit the world, a lot of BPM people lost their job. And I never understood, why would a discipline that is obsessed with streamlining and benefit realization be not credible enough to be appreciated? Why? Because all you did, you built capability. You didn't make a net change to the organization. So that's fundamental. That value-driven BPM means to think about what you try to achieve and to deliver to that promise. So I asked this question, John Wheeler, who used to be the CIO of Nova Chemicals, and it's the most beautiful picture I could find. And he said, I know I've been successful if everybody understands the process, and that's a huge effort. If we understand the metrics that matter, and third, when we understand how we improve this process. The problem is, in many cases, we only give our employees step one. You might know the context in which you work. You might not know what metric matters. In many cases, we don't give you a vision. I talked to a CEO recently. He said, everybody complies, but nobody inspires. Why? Well, you don't tell them where you want to be. You tell them Monday morning, that's your procurement process. You don't tell them what matters about procurement. Faster, better quality, less vendors, more flexibility. If you don't give people a vision, you don't get ideas. In this organization, when you call the call center, the help desk, and say, your printer doesn't work, what kind of response would you get? The IT guys say, we don't care about resources. We don't care about broken printers. The typical IT department would ask you after you talked about, did you put in paper and switch the power on? Okay, I come tomorrow. At Nova Chemicals, they will ask you, what process suffers? Do you print invoices and we lose cash? Or do you play with a Christmas card invitation? Depending on your response, the answer is in 5 minutes or in 5 days. We don't care about a broken printer. This is the ultimate test. Is your company process-oriented? If the person who calls doesn't know what process suffers, they will hang up and say, call us when you know the answer. This is an expression of confidence. You have to move from keeping resources alive to supporting value. And value is not generated by a printer that is on. Value is generated by the process that consumes the resource. Now you replace printer with warehouse, product, or employee, and you have the same conversation. Stop worrying about switching on capabilities and resources. This is what matters. But as long as our mindset is to keep the lights on, we will never be able to deliver the value that is required. This picture, or maybe this here, is a vision for many companies we work with. How long will it take until we have this conversation in our help desk? That's a vision for many of our clients. So in a global study, we did a lot of focus groups. And we asked companies, now tell us what drives BPM. And we got 2 times 3 answers. We have a set of internal targets. In green on the bottom, efficiency gains. I want to streamline the organization. And we make sure that you get all those slides. Yeah? So the first statement, and still the most common, is I want to streamline. I'm looking into efficiency gains. The second one is about compliance. It doesn't really make us a better organization. It might give us some credibility. It helps with the next audit. But we have to comply. And the third one is about employee integration. Hey, we are Department of Justice. We don't work for profit. We have a problem with employee retention. The best we can do is create a process that motivates people to stay, to enjoy their work. On the external side, we talk about quality. Can I create a new experience? Because I'm faster, more flexible, and I increase customers or increase customer retention. Can I involve customers, networking, social, BPM? Can people contribute to the way we work? And we talk about crowdfunding and so on. And the third one is agility. Can I adapt to changes in our environment? I'll give you an example for agility. There's a brewery in Australia. If the temperature goes up by 1 degree, they will sell 2% more beer. There's an insurance company. When we have a tropical storm, instead of 9,000, they will get 20,000 phone calls. The context-aware organization is able to adapt. I don't put my process in concrete, but I sense the environment. And I can adopt my call center script and hire people. Unemployment rate, dollar rates, political conversation. What is the context that influences your organization, and how long does it take you to adopt? So I'll take you quickly through the other 5. Employee-oriented. When we all talk about like it, social, mobile, at some point BPM needs to consider what can we do to the people? Current technology is, I run a workflow, and you get a job because you're qualified, you might be available, and you might be the cheapest. That's not employee focused. That is us pushing out a job. The workflow tool of the future will have a like it button. Whatever you do between 9 and 5, you can press the like it button. Imagine that. Imagine you could build gravity. Hey, I like that sort of job. Can I get more of those? We work with companies to make this happening. When your focus is to increase employee satisfaction, people have to be able to articulate what they're like. I have to start listening. If you press the like it button and I give you more of those kind of jobs, at the time when you want it, I hopefully can contribute to increased satisfaction with work. What we have done in our organization at our university is to measure culture. It's an approach called human synergistics. And I know that some people ask questions about culture. Culture, as many people believe, has BPM for breakfast. But some people believe a great process can shape culture. And over time, we can innovate a process, and we can really, truly transform the organization. What we are doing here is, on the left, we asked more than 100 individuals, how is our current culture? If it's green, it means it's driven by procedures, approval, and strict, narrow, constrained processes. If it is red, it means we rely on hierarchies, power. I'm your boss, I tell you, I don't need an argument. If it's blue, it means humanistic, we give you space, you have flexibility. On the left, where we are, on the right, where we want to be. What do you mean we hate change? People want change. Very often, personal belief, no evidence, very often I believe this is typical in most companies. But what people say in the boardroom is, our people hate change. That might not be true. That might not be true. This is slide 2 in our presentations. We are acting on behalf of the people. How do I take you from the left to the right? That is my KPI. Imagine your bonus as a head of a department relies on the fact to the extent you go from the left to the right. And we measure this every 12 months. What pressure does this put on your processes? What process design principles do you derive if someone gives you a picture like this? Nobody talks dollars. Nobody talks cost. We talk about how do I design a process that supports the cultural journey of the organization. What's one response? We need to take out approval steps. So we have a whole initiative where we question approval steps. Maybe we can be a bit more coarse in our definition of processes. Maybe we can delegate process ownership to a different extent. So you can see, if your focus is on employees and culture, there are very simple tools and tricks. Human synergistics, you can have pictures like this in 2 weeks for your organization. Compliance. Compliance is often a very boring topic. It can be exciting. And so our whole attitude is to spice up your BPM life. And I'll show you one example. So how do you spice up your BPM life? Take data. Imagine you're like an insurance company, 6 months, 12,000 claims. You want to improve this. But you don't want to do a root cause analysis of weaknesses and modeling and spend 12 weeks to get minimum improvements. But you also have absolutely no idea of what can be done. So what we do is we take a bunch of PhD students and postdocs, give them literally an email attachment that looks like this, and say, hey, how can you save a few $1 million? What they do is, it's called process mining. So you take evidence. This is not confidence. I believe we work like this. This is how you work the last 6 months. On the left, the fastest 5%. On the right, the slowest 5%. And you can visualize this and animate this. BPM, all of a sudden, becomes a broker of best practices. You learn from the best, the ones on the left, and you educate the guys on the right. You educate the rest. You learn from the best, you educate the rest. Positive deviance. Same people, same process, same context, same type of claims, completely different performance. I have no idea how claims can be handled, but I can use some simple tools, developed, by the way, in Eindhoven, and can massively improve organizational performance. It's interesting to note that the person on the left typically doesn't know that they are the best, and they also don't know why are they the best. What we do a lot of root cause analysis of success now. In my own department, what do? Years ago, at the end of the semester, we would give an award, let's say $500, to the best lecture, as measured by student performance. We stopped doing this. It's pointless, because nobody learned. Today, we give you $500 if you can run half an hour seminar why you're so successful. Most award winners have no clue why they are liked. I come to work. I don't do benchmarking. I've got no idea what my colleagues are doing. The guys who handle the claims on the left don't know that the guys on the right work like this. I do my job. The BPM team of the future becomes a broker. I find the best, and I communicate this through the organization. The only root cause analysis we do is the root cause analysis of success. So you pull up the organization, and you talk about heroes and stars. You don't talk the organization down by talking about weaknesses and failure. We call this conscious competence. In most cases, people who are very good in what they do are not consciously competent. I play soccer, try to train the team of my son, and I struggled. We are not consciously competent. We're not aware of our competence, and we can't articulate why we're competent. The BPM team of the future would increase the level of conscious competence in the organization. If we find the positive deviance, we can unpack the root causes of success. There's a massive opportunity to innovate. We did this in a large retail environment recently. 900 bakeries. We've got no idea how to run a bakery. We give you a postdoc, we give you a PhD student, we run through some sales data, take some pictures, videos, talk to clients, and run the night shift. When we are finished, we give you ideas for dramatic improvement of your performance. At the end, the retailer, maybe not joking, said to one of the PhD students, do you want to run the bakery? You become such an expert in the proven best practices. We call this design by evidence and not design by confidence. 10% of all management decisions are based on evidence, 90% are gut feeling. Imagine you could increase the level of evidence-based design. We have no idea how to handle a claim or how to run a bakery, but within weeks, you can leave those sort of information. Efficiency-driven BPM, the third and final internal one. I don't want to talk about this in a lot of detail because this is bread and butter business. But the typical approach of BPM was to eliminate waste, and we call it lean management. Variation, and we call it Six Sigma. Manual labor, and we call it automation. Or you take out the non-conforming examples, and you talk about increased compliance. What you end up with, a lack of predictable, minimalistic, fine-tuned, total boring, and non-exciting process. That is fair enough, but what you need to do is that the savings you generate here get reinvested closer to the customer. Save it on the red line and invest it in the blue line. Save on the left, invest on the right. Use exploitation to collect the energy, time, resources, and funding that you require to innovate. It's dangerous that you're tempted to do nothing else than the work on the left. There will be always a problem to fix and always some secure 10% return on investment. And you can do this for the next 30 years of your working life. The one on the right are less secure, a bit more uncertain, but far more exciting. Let's talk about the outside, the outward-looking BPM side, and maybe more exciting. So today, fact is that most companies are still internally focused. Efficiency, compliance, and employee-centered, as just discussed, with a focus on efficiency and compliance. The idea of quality now is about to truly understand what matters to the client, to the customer. And Chris Potts said, it's not about the customer taking part in your process, it's about you taking part in their process. I'm a bank, I give you a mortgage. Hey, it's my end-to-end process. No, it's not. It's 5% of my process that I call buying a house. It's a great step for you. It's a very small step for your customer. It's pretty sad that we talk about end-to-end processes that happen in our organization, and we are proud to deliver when the true end-to-end process is by a magnitude much more challenging. Could I blend into your life? We work with a superannuation company in Australia. We don't study how they work, we study how you retire in Australia. We don't worry about how you work. Let's understand what your customers go through, and then we sit together how we position your services in their process. When we redesigned student enrollment at our own university, my colleagues said, we take a customer view, a student view. I asked them, how many students contribute to your workshops? What do you mean, contribute? So we have to get real about customer orientation. And the most extreme form is that you finally start to adopt what I call the birth to death value chain. mylife.org. So who will finally take us through our life? Companies like SAP have prototypes for new baby scenarios. At some point, and we talk few months and years, pockets of this will be available in the cloud to your customers. The danger is, if you're not visible in that process, someone else will be. And then you play a second fiddle. And that's like Combank being scared of Facebook. So at some point, there will be someone who takes us through this process for free to the customer, and to the back door, providers will contribute. I'll give an example of what that means in reality. BMW. And when they decided instead of a car, we sell mobility. They switched from an internal business process, ending with, I give you a piece of plastic and metal, to, I support you for the rest of the product consumption. Challenge is, at some point, my customers will need a car. And you can see, if I try to blend into the life of my customers, the challenges are very different. I'm BMW. How do I deliver on my promise? Well, what they've done is they created a platform called Park at My House. Like Apple and the iPhone, BMW becomes a broker. I invite individuals to submit driveways and garages, and I become a broker between you, the driver, and the garage. Now imagine, what else could you do if you're BMW? When are you the closest to a certain group of customers? I'm an airline. I've got 400 people flying from Sydney to Buenos Aires. What could I do? Well, what is Qantas doing? Everyone in business class gets an iPad. What could I put on the iPad? How much could I charge for a place on the iPad? And all of a sudden, I run this like a soccer stadium and selling advertisement. Maybe I sell education. I talked to a guy who runs a taxi company. For more than 50% of the time, his drivers don't drive. Don't worry about the optimization of the tour. Ask yourself, what can you do with hundreds, if not even thousands of people doing nothing? It's like a mobile call center on standby, speaking 51 different languages. Well, the question is, does it matter that it's BMW? And maybe it doesn't. So it's like a white label. So the point was, the gentleman didn't even know that this is about BMW. And the question, does it matter or not? Did I say I give you mobility empowered by BMW? Or did I say I give you mobility? Maybe I'm just a broker. Hey, I'm a car manufacturer. I'm not in the commercial resale of parking space. So my point is, if you want to support a whole process, that doesn't mean that you have to deliver the whole lot. Sometimes you just empower different customer experiences. And when it comes to the world of networking and social interaction, we see a lot of opportunities. The mindset now is, I look at my process and I ask myself, where does social media play a difference? This is explorative BPM. Don't worry about what is broken, but if many of your clients and customers have a LinkedIn and Facebook profile, what could you do? Do you put your products out on Facebook and customers can like it? Do customers just press a wanted button and they buy it? Do you work like Guild.com, an online retailer? They check your cloud score, your level of digital connectedness, and if you're well connected, you are a digital influencer, you get a higher discount. Brisbane Airport copied KLM Surprise. A few months ago, someone was tweeting, I'm at the airport, I'm bored, I'm waiting for my plane, leaving in 3 hours. 10 minutes later, this gentleman got a book of his favorite author. Monitoring Twitter, checking your Facebook account, finding your favorite author, going to the bookshop, and pleasantly surprise you. A copy from KLM Surprise, as you might know. At a hotel in Las Vegas, you will get an upgrade if you're well connected. So what these companies are doing, they complement a focus on the customer lifetime value, the net present value of my commercial engagements with you, with the customer influence value. How well connected are you? And we create complete new process experiences. We create triage points and processes for well-connected customers. This is a complete new mindset. Yeah? You split a process for those individuals who have influence over a large chunk of your customer base. Organizations like Delta put the whole process into Facebook since years. You select your flight, you book your flight, of course, you pick your seat, and of course you sit next to your friends. I go where the customers are, whether it's a virtual store, Combank Kashing, or Delta and Facebook. The emergence of the personal process management as an attractor, as a point of gravity that complements our understanding of internal processes has grown in dramatic importance. How to implement all of this, and then we come to the end of this afternoon. BPM is a complex phenomenon, but it's important to hide this complexity to others. We developed a complex project. We studied success factors with large companies around the globe and gave a workshop yesterday on this in London. And the 6 factors are strategic alignment. Whatever you do, it has to support the journey of the organization. Don't create ideas that are about cutting costs if we need more revenue and innovation. Second is about methods. But it's important that your methods are aligned to your strategy. Hey, we need to reduce carbon footprint, but in BPMN 2.0, there's not a symbol called carbon footprint. There's not a symbol called employee satisfaction or mortality rate. So where do I find this? Third, IT, technology. But it's not just the process technology, it's the integration of mobile, social, cloud, and big data. And to capitalize on this integration, because true innovation, as you saw, is typically not achieved by just automating a process. You have to merge various technologies. The problem is, every single idea that I presented, sooner or later, will be born. I just hope that more and more in the future will be born by process people, and not by people who look into mobile, cloud, big data, or social technologies. We have a head start because we know how the company works, but we have to go beyond fixing problems. People is about skills, process skills and process management skills, and culture is about the attitude to process change. My very first BPM gig, she was 63, I was 24. I tried to talk into financial changes. She said, Michael, cute ideas, I'm 63, I retire in 2 years, nothing will change. And so you can do all the other 5 things right, you have to engage the people. And what I said, don't mention problem, create a joint vision, measure culture, are some of the little tricks I think we can do. There are various players involved, in particular process owners and process leaders. Process owners should not be the guys who were standing when you stopped playing the music. Process owners should be people in charge for corporate asset, called business process, worth millions of dollars. Every process is a massive investment opportunity. A process owner is a process expert, a process leader is a process management expert. And hand in hand, they work together to reflect on what needs to be done. In some selected companies, a process owner gets promoted. It's a very attractive job. And like in some of the big consulting houses, you expose yourself left, right, and center through the whole organization. Because I work, at least company internal, end to end. After 1 or 2 years, I get recruited, and someone else needs to replenish, needs to come and fill my shoes. So process ownership can be a stepping stone in your career. If processes are the most important, it's something we can only judge in the context of your corporation. In a retailer environment, the procurement is totally important. In other cases, it might be intellectual property, project skills, or employee or customer capabilities. But what we say is the process owner, the process manager, needs a seat at that table, because otherwise you fly blind, and every single innovation that I just described cannot be contextualized and harvested in the context of the way we work. So, last slide. We have to stop worrying about the red line, the left side. We have to stop worrying about what BPM is all about. Take BPM as a service. Trust that you can buy the human capability, the tools, and the methods to do this all right. We have to get much better in understanding what an organization can do with BPM for their own processes, business processes, but in the future, even more important, for the processes of their clients, what I call personal processes. Thank you so much.
Michael, thanks so far. Does it work? Yeah, it does. Now we have time for questions. Michael will answer the questions together with my colleague, Jan Bosman. Jan is chairman of the board and also author. Michael wrote the International Handbook of Process Management. Jan wrote the Dutch Handbook of Process Management. It also makes it easy to ask your questions in Dutch. He speaks Dutch. I will come to you with a microphone. It's not, I have to put it close to your face. I won't attack you, otherwise it won't work. So, please feel free to ask any questions. Someone? Someone with a question? Yes.
Yeah, what I always find interesting, you described the roles of process leader, process owner. How do you see that optimally aligned with, indeed, the functional owners in a company, and how do they work together? Because in my experience, the company where I work, it's something that's most difficult of all to make it eventually work and to be successful in process optimization.
And leave it up to you to contribute.
You're the guest.
It's indeed a tricky question. But first of all, you have to have clarity on how important is the process to your corporate performance. Second, it takes a long while before there's a conflict. When you optimize the whole system, then I totally agree that at some point, a great process will be in a conflict with optimize the resources in my functional silo. But before we hit this point, there's a lot of consensus around what we try to achieve. Companies who are really passionate about process give the process owner a budget. I know that many process owners don't have a budget. I know that many process owners, they do this as a part-time hobby. You're an executive, you've got 8 different jobs, and guess what? You become a process owner as well. Do I care? No. On paper, we've got a process owner, it will make no difference. If you're really serious and want to capitalize on this, you need a process owner who ideally is full-time and has a budget, means I can fund change. I don't have to sit and beg and try to convince a functional owner. We should not think about there's an immediate conflict. Only in the perfectly fine-tuned organization, and you see this in, let's say, manufacturing environments, processes and functions are in a conflict. I guess that most companies have a long way to go before they hit this conflict.
I think, I don't know, maybe this is the frenemy system. I don't know if it's connected to it. Yeah, I totally agree with Michael. It's also really difficult for me to disagree with Michael because as a lot of you, I'm 20 years studying this subject. And we do a lot of research in business process management. And this year we looked especially at innovation. And I don't know Who of you participated in the research? Only 3. There are 250 companies join it, so for the people who don't know it, afterwards it will be available. This year we studied especially innovation, and if you look at it, it's a completely blue ocean. Innovation and business process management. So joining the whole day with Michael was wonderful. For us it's only 1 hour. But we received a lot of questions about how can you make the transition from a silo organization to a more process organization or even a chain organization. And really important in this is the factor of the people and the value driven piece of it. So it's
just to make myself clear, I don't necessarily believe that you need to migrate an organization from a silo-based organization to a process-oriented organization. I think you should have a combination, an optimal combination of both. Working for an international company, I mean, I will never, with my team, it will never be possible to change the Dutch organization into a merely process-oriented organization. We will always have to work with the fact that we're a silo-based organization, at least for the coming years. So what I want to achieve is the combination.
Combination. If you look at that, there is really a lot of research about governance.
Yes.
Also, Michael is playing an important role in this. But if you look at how to make it work, it's really important to find a system inside your organization that is transparent, but also really clear about how's the governance of processes. And the role of the process owner is really important in this. And also, what's his ambition? What's the next step? This morning we had a really inspiring meeting, also speaking about the role of the process owner. And the process owner is not somebody who has nothing to do for a moment, and you find somebody who has time to do it. It's the most high potential person, potentially, in the organization, playing this role for only a few years, and probably, in a lot of times, research is also proving this, he is headhunted for his next role. So to find the people who have really the clear sight over different silos, but also different organizations, and the importance that you give to it.
Elaborate. Is there any relationship between providing your organizational energy on the red and the blue line with reference to organizational maturity? The organization I come from is 12 years old, and we're currently struggling with this topic. We are focusing on what we can do under the hood and not necessarily that personal experience. So that's why I'm wondering, is there any relationship with the maturity?
We don't have data, so I'm not sure how to correlate this. So whatever I would say now is a personal perception and gut feeling. I believe that typical organizations in low levels of maturity will look for the red line, because the red line is a quick gain. It's low risk, it's predictable. I talked yesterday to someone said, I can always find a process where I can save 10%. It's not a challenge at all. I can do this for the next 10 years. And I like all your innovation, but I'll always find 10% cost cutting somewhere in the organization. Now the challenge is, it's very hard to create what you just called a blue ocean strategy, to find something that goes beyond this. So if you really go from red line to blue line, and you really go from exploitation to exploration, I think it's a quite fundamental shift in the organization. So at some point, someone consciously has to subsidize this. Because the people who are busy will not be able to take you from the red line to the blue line. Organizations that are more mature will say, we have the red line under control. We have a certain stability. The Commonwealth Bank example that I gave you, they spent $1 billion and more on cleaning up the red line. We are a bank, there's a legacy of mainframes. Today, regarded as one of the most innovative banks on this planet. Massive investment into the red line, but the attitude was, whatever comes out of this as a gain is invested close to the client. When the iPad came out, Combank was the first bank that had an app for it. So you need this mind shift change, that you also understand how these two lines connect, and that maybe gains on the left or on the red line can subsidize this. But I think it's a higher level of maturity that is then required, because you go beyond the very simplistic, let's react to a challenge, to, hey, let's look around and what opportunities are out there. But the simple example, the positive deviant, what I showed you with the bakeries or the claims, is something that doesn't require rocket science. This is not about, I've got an innovation lab in California or Silicon Valley, and I do a lot of design thinking. That's something you can do on Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Find a positive deviant. That's something you can do with your current capabilities as of today. So blue line also doesn't mean it's all rocket science. It's also not just a complete different world. There are a lot of little things where by shifting the focus from what's broken to what works extremely well, you can start changing the culture already. And BPM is not perceived as we chase the next big problem, we chase the next hero.
You're talking about
when you're talking about the red line and the blue line, when you're not an innovation leader, why should you ever want to be a blue line?
You don't have to be. So don't get me wrong. I don't say that every organization has to kind of mimic Apple and Google. So if you're like a low-cost retailer, and you're like take certain retailers we all know, and my promise is to give you access to butter in the cheapest way, that's fine. So I don't say everybody has to innovate. What I say is there's an opportunity. I believe that everybody could innovate. And there's an opportunity. And maybe I even change my business model. Hey, maybe the car manufacturer of the future will say, hey, we become maybe a broker. And maybe we mimic the Apple model. So it also could mean we are not an innovator, we are happy in the red line, but hey, guys, we are BPM people. I have some innovative ideas, and sometimes the business model innovation might follow the process innovation. This is now, let's say, a lot of confidence behind the BPM community, but the more we see a process as step one of the innovation journey, the more I hope that even organizations today, who are today saying, I'm not an innovation, in the innovation game, in the future might say, hey, I like the idea. And I could imagine how we generate more revenue. I talked to a lady from shared services, and we talked about once you've done process redesign internally, and your business model is to charge for invoices that you process, could you imagine selling process design as a service? Hey, all of a sudden there's an innovative idea. I'm not just streamlining handling invoices. I generate new revenue by selling BPM process redesign as a service to my ecosystem. That's a change of my business model, derived from an emerging BPM capability. Sorry for stealing your story.
Michael, we also received a lot of questions from people who couldn't make it this afternoon, but are really interested, maybe now following us by the live stream.
Yep.
So I would like to ask some of these questions to you. You're talking about the ambiguity of process, business process management, the left and the right. Is it by definition that it's not possible only one person over 100 can do both? Is it also the same case for the business process specialists, do you think?
We don't have data, so when I quoted 1%, that's really based on the kind of physical ability to use both hands. We haven't done any study where I would say, as a scientist now, it's true. But our gut feeling of, based on conversations is, I guess the 1% ratio might be true. And it might be tough, but I fear that in some cases, people hold back the potential of BPM. BPM has a lot of potential, but if my team is full of let's say, red line-minded people, it's very hard to call upon the potential. So I don't have data to say, is it 1% or 20%? Okay. But my fear is that a lot of BPM people come from a track record of being an architect, an IT person, a system designer, a data modeler, a business analyst, and very few come from an outward marketing, customer, design innovation view. We now companies who start to recruit that sort of skill set.
Okay. Another question is also really intriguing myself. If you look at the business process management, mainly there are three main streams, really focusing on control, focusing on improvement, and now we also have innovation.
Yes.
The question is asking, for control and for improvement, there are a lot of tools and techniques available. Yes. Is there also this set of tools and techniques already available for the innovation part?
There is. So on the one side, there's stock standard material that you can consume. So design innovation, design-led innovation is one stream of thinking where we can see a lot of work. We see an increased body of knowledge around innovation patterns. That's what we teach in our curriculum, for example. So examples are, you take a process and you ask yourself, what else can I do with the process? Like resequencing. Maybe at the moment you pay at the beginning, could you pay at the end? If I take the example shared services, I assume today I give you an invoice and you will charge me $10 to process and pay. Could I imagine that you do this at the very end and you charge me based on the work you had with it? Is the number missing? Is something incorrect? And you might spend $15 work. Straight through processing, you might spend 50 cents. I'm not innovative. All I say is I use the innovation pattern, resequencing, and I propose to a shared service, could you create a different business model? So you can go to my homepage and you can find, thanks for the question, by the way, you can find 15 innovation patterns. We use an Empire State Building as an example. And what we do is we teach process analysts to think in these patterns. Triaging, elimination, making something optional, or resequencing. The idea is you just prompt alternative solutions. I don't know if it will work, but I need to make sure that I see alternatives.
Thank you very much. Maybe there's another one in the audience asking a question. I have a whole list, so I can fill the whole evening. But
There's one over there, Sander.
Hi, I'm working at a pretty large company, so I want to know how will you advise to create awareness on a really high level in the organization about BPM?
On a high level, you need a high level of abstraction. So you know how big companies often talk about 5, 6, or 8 key processes. I think it's very important that you don't stop with a PowerPoint slide that says, here's my value chain, here are my support processes. You have to add a price tag to every bubble. I saw once a guy from Perth presenting, and he said, here's our process architecture. And you know, there's kind of one slide full of bubbles and diagrams, and nobody can read it. And he talked about every single bubble. That's our $12 million process. That's our $4 million process. That's our $27 million process. So it's not me being proud to design an enterprise-wide process model on that level of abstraction. It's me talking in financial terms about the value of these corporate assets. Where would you like to invest your money? How important are these processes? How healthy are they? Some of these companies do process portfolio management. They take their 8, 10, or 12 processes and sort them, how important they are in line of the strategy, and how much need for improvement is there. And all of a sudden we channel investment decisions. So you have to convert your diagrams and processes into boardroom conversations.